Good morning, my friends. Ohayo gozaimasu. So today, I'm making another video about Japanese. This time, it is about the reason I believe Japanese is probably the most important key to acquire multilingual abilities for anybody in the world. And it is one of the most beneficial language to learn for the long term. So this is a particular video beneficial to all my young friends, including my own son, who is 12 years old. I want to encourage anybody in the world, if you want to learn a foreign language, consider Japanese as your number one choice before you move on to other languages. As a polyglot myself, I have to say my journey into Japanese languages started now very late. At the age of 50, I'm only starting learning. But I've been exposed to Japanese culture since I was 23 years old. And my journeys to Japan has always been incredibly beneficial. I always learn a lot and I always enjoy the experience with the people there. But those are not the real reason why I think, logically speaking, for anybody who should study a foreign language should pick up Japanese first. So I thought I should be able to use other people's experiences to use as evidence for the thesis that Japanese is the first foreign language to learn. So what I did is I dived into the polyglot community on YouTube and looked for videos where a polyglot who speaks multiple languages, which one would they recommend to learn first? Since those people approach language learning like a skill acquisition, almost like in a video game. So they had very competitive approach to language learning. So the first person I found, his name is Big Bong, is a good channel. He speaks multiple Asian languages. He's a native French, I believe. And in this video, I'm blending in for you to see, for anybody who wants to follow up on research on this topic. In this video, he compared all three languages, major North Asian languages, who are quite related to each other, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. And at the end of the video, he recommends anybody who can't choose between the three to start with Japanese first. He has good reasons for that. So that's evidence number one. This is a dude who speaks many, many languages, and his Japanese is amazing. His Korean is very, very good. His Chinese is, let's say, a 70% there. It's not easy, but I have to say his language approach is truly impressive. So that's the first person. Then I went to a Google Trend, look for trend analysis for searching for learning Japanese or learning Chinese as a good comparison. And it turns out by color scheme, you can see not only it is more popular to learn Japanese than learn Chinese on a global basis. Most interesting here is why I didn't realize is the number one interest coming from the world to learn Chinese is from China. If you do an individual search on learning Chinese for Google Trend search, you'll see majority of the search came from China itself, which is kind of logical because Chinese is a hard language. A lot of Chinese don't really speak Chinese that well. A lot of them speak a dialect. I myself, I speak 3 different dialects before I actually learned Mandarin Chinese. It's just a circumstance that caused that to happen. Also, Chinese come in 2 different writing systems. One is simplified Chinese, another one is the traditional Chinese, which are used in different areas in the world. That's another thing. So basic Chinese is a hard language to learn in general. So most of the people who want to learn Chinese are, according to the map, from China or from Central African countries. That's very interesting. But Japanese interests are more broad, way more broad. Everyone in the world, basically, compared to China, everyone else wants to learn Japanese compared to Chinese. I'm not surprised because the content that is available to everybody online in Japanese is significantly more interesting compared to the Chinese content. Because if I think about Chinese content, a lot of the stuff is just propaganda. And Chinese mainland content is mostly heavily filtered by the government and by the Communist Party. So it carries a lot of colored content in it. Japanese content is more open, more variety, and last but not least, all the animes are just amazing. Okay, that's the next thing. Now, the next thing I did is I went into depth to look at people who actually learn Chinese and what kind of experience they have. So I searched for the word learn Chinese by popularity. And on my channel or on my browser, the fourth biggest content, which I've not seen before until today, is this lady called Bianca Learns. She's a PhD student in New York City, and she studied Chinese for 1 year plus. So I want to see how she was doing. And then I went to her channel and look at her latest video. And surprisingly, turns out once her PhD study become more busy, not only she stopped learning Chinese, more interesting is in her own bedroom, it's all decorated with Japanese artwork and Japanese content. Basically, her bridge to the Eastern culture is via the Chinese language, but ultimately she ended up in the Japanese culture. I believe the main reason is because over the year of studying Chinese, she probably realized the cultural difference between Japan and China is so big, and the Chinese culture doesn't suit her that well. And the Japanese culture suits her significantly more, which I would agree. As I look at a couple of her videos, I find she's more of a Japanese type of a person than a Chinese type of person. Yeah, she's honest, trustworthy, orderly, pretty much a structured personality. And I want you to pay attention to the artwork in the background. This is a famous Japanese artist. She has decorated her room with all the things Japanese, nothing Chinese in it. So that's another evidence for someone who has had long time new experience to the language of Chinese language. Ultimately, she switched over to Japanese culture, which means ultimately she will end up learning Japanese anyway. But she will have the advantage of learn some kanji. And now the last evidence I have is on the Polyglot channel, a famous one, Walter. Walter is a Dutch guy who speaks, from my perspective, pretty much broken languages. She says probably speak 15, 20 languages, but they're all pretty broken. But still, he's the last generation polyglot. Let's just say it this way. The new generation polyglot is the girl on the right. Her name is Cameron, and her goal, a long-term goal, I believe, is to learn the most languages in the world, to break Guinness World Record. She wants to learn 103 languages. Right now, she has language 21. And yet, after learning 21 languages, I check her latest website, her Instagram, and her YouTube channel. It turns out her favorite Asian language, guess what? It's Japanese. This is her YouTube channel. She doesn't have a lot of subscribers, but her number one longest video that's also most popular is actually a Japanese lesson she had with a italki guy on the internet. And her Japanese is really good. And in general, she speaks very well. A lot of the languages that she speaks are really good. Her pronunciations are good. She probably did a lot of immersion and direct learning instead of grammar and books. And I find this very, very interesting. Yeah. So that's another evidence that Japanese is a very important, a very good choice for any polyglots. And this girl has choices of all kind of languages, and ultimately she chose Japanese. So, and of course, last but not least, just remember all the food you can eat in Japanese culture, the places you can visit, the friends you can make, and the animes you can watch, all those things. It's amazing content waiting out there for everybody. And for me personally, one extra bonus is maybe there'll be some interesting real estate waiting for me as well. Who knows? But as a motivation, I think this acts pretty good as an initial motivation. I hope this video will motivate everybody to choose Japanese as a first foreign language, and then you can continue the journey, become a polyglot yourself. Shouldn't be that hard anymore in today's world. Thanks you for listening, and talk to you tomorrow. じゃあね。